So, Matthew, tell us about this exhibition.
So this is an exhibition by the incredible Richard Slee, one of Britain's best-known ceramic artists, and it's been inspired by Mass Observation's 1937 survey of mantelpieces. And Richard's also selected 18 photographs by the Mass Observation photographer Humphrey Spender to hang alongside his new ceramic pieces.
Fabulous, thank you. Could you tell us a bit more about the starting point that Richard used for the exhibition itself?
So the main inspiration for the new ceramic pieces is the material held in these cases. So we've borrowed some material from the Mass Observation Archive at the University of Sussex in Brighton. And the main starting point is this really, it's Mass Observation's directive on mantelpieces, which was sent out to their volunteer observers in 1937.
Tell us a bit more about the ceramics that Richard created for this exhibition.
So Richard's created 10 mantelpiece arrangements, which he kind of calls scenes or tableaus. So each mantelpiece arrangement has objects on it that are kind of linked in some way. So you'll see when you visit that there are 10 mantelpiece plinths, and they go from kind of recognisable mantelpiece plinth like this to gradually becoming more like standard museum box-like plinths at the end. So this is a good starting point, because this is a classic mantelpiece with a clock in the middle and a candlestick on the left and right sides. But this mantelpiece arrangement has been inspired by a famous painting by the surrealist artist René Magritte, Time Transfixed, which was painted in 1938, just a year after Mass Observation issued its mantelpiece directive. It's the famous painting of the locomotive with steam coming out of its funnel, rushing out of the fireplace. And you can see that Richard's created the clock and the mantelpiece, and he's even created the light falling onto the side of the candlestick.
The dog in front of us right now, it's obviously in the style of a Staffordshire dog, but it has two faces. How did that come about?
Well, this piece is called Janus, and Janus was the Roman god of beginnings and endings, and he's often shown in pictures or sculptures with two faces, one looking to the past and one looking to the future. And that kind of captures one of the themes of this exhibition, where Richard is looking back to the 1930s, but also over his long career. So, and it's based on a description of a Staffordshire dog in one of the Mass Observation volunteers who lived in Burnley. And she wrote that the large glazed earthenware dogs are very usual in this district. They do not break, are easily cleaned, and are given to a fractious child to cuddle in bed. Thus they acquire family associations, the volunteer writes.
Matthew, the smoking paraphernalia that we see on this mantelpiece is way too big. What's the idea behind that?
Well, this is classic Richard Slee. What Richard has always done in his career is to take things in the home, ordinary things, but he'll change them in some way, he'll transform them like a surrealist artist. And what he often does is enlarge things. So you can see he's enlarged the ashtray and the matchbox to take them away from reality and to make us look again at these ordinary things. But again, they're based on descriptions in the mantelpiece reports. There's a lot, everyone smoked basically in the 1930s, and in all the reports there are descriptions of matchboxes, ashtrays, and so Richard has created this smoking mantelpiece arrangement.
Matthew, the Toby Jugs, of which we have two here, I find them quite disturbing. Can you explain a little more about them?
I love these Toby Jugs, especially this one. It's a very charming, colourful Toby Jug. So Richard became quite famous really in the 1990s for his big Toby Jugs. He kind of uses the Toby Jug form, which is based on a classic ceramic figure from the 18th century. A lot of people had these on their mantelpieces or on their display cabinets. And what Richard has always done is enlarge these things, made them more colourful, and often he brings in aspects of his own life or uses them to comment on aspects of British culture. But these two have been inspired by very detailed descriptions of two Toby Jugs in one of the 1937 mantelpiece reports. So this one, this really colourful one, the description begins, also on our mantelpiece is another Toby Jug, and not one to match the other, at least as far as colour is concerned. His face is a bright red, eyes grey, hair brown underneath his green hat. He wears a blue coat with a brown waistcoat, red trousers, yellow stockings and green sandal shoes complete the effect. And then the other one, which appears in the same mantelpiece report, this also has a very detailed description of the colours. And the report says, one Toby Jug, China, Mr. Toby Man, whose arms are folded across his chest, is a dirty yellow from the rim of his hat to his distended paunch, from the bottom of his stomach to his feet, which are lost in the base of the jug, he is a muddy green. And the report writer concludes, you will gather that the jug is half yellow and half green.
I noticed that the clock here has two faces, not dissimilar to the Janus dog. Tell me a bit more about it.
So this piece is called Ghost, and you can see it looks a bit ghost-like, and it looks like maybe it's walking or moving across the mantelpiece. If you think of like some classic ghost stories, they often begin with hauntings or the story of the ghost happening around a mantelpiece. So maybe Richard had that in mind when he was creating Ghost. But I think it's also that thing of looking back to the 1930s, this really troubled decade in British history. So maybe it's a sense of a visitor from another century, a ghost appearing in the 2020s, having travelled from the 1930s.
Here we appear to have got aeroplanes covered in birds' feet. What's all that about?
So these two pieces are called Chicken Air, and they're the pieces that have most directly been inspired by Humphrey Spender's photographs. They've been inspired by this photograph, which shows two boys playing with chicken feet, and they're pretending that the chicken feet are aeroplanes. So that's one influence on these aeroplanes, and you can see he's put raised chicken feet all across the aeroplanes. But the shape of the aeroplane has been inspired by an aeroplane of the period of the 1930s called the Lockheed aeroplane. And it's the aeroplane that took the Prime Minister of Britain, Neville Chamberlain, to meet Hitler in Munich in 1938. And Chamberlain flew over there and they came up with a peace agreement. And then Chamberlain flew back to Britain, landed in London, came out of the Lockheed aeroplane, waving a piece of paper saying, "I've got peace in our time." And that was 1 year before the outbreak of the Second World War. So tragically, it didn't work. And there were lots of comments on the 1930s in this exhibition, a lot of references to this very troubled period in British history, to surrealism, to the rise of fascism. It's all there in these pieces, I think. So this is probably the most surreal of the 10 mantelpiece arrangements. So one of the other inspirations on these new ceramics, and it's been an inspiration across Richard's career really, is the influence of surrealism. So in 1936 there was a big exhibition of surrealist art in London, the International Surrealist Exhibition, and it was the first time that people in Britain got to see the work of René Magritte, Salvador Dali, Giorgio de Chirico, some of the big names in kind of surrealist art, and that had a huge influence on young British artists, including the photographer Humphrey Spender, who I'll mention in a moment. But kind of surrealism is definitely there in this exhibition. So we've got this sinister looking cat here, which is based on a description in one of the reports, a spelling mistake in fact, and the spelling mistake said block woolly cat, and I assume they should have written black woolly hat. So Richard's kind of combined these two into a slightly uncanny, scary looking black cat. And then probably the most surreal object is this. So we've got an Art Deco, we've got a Bakelite mirror here, which Richard has placed onto two ceramic feet. We've got a swan or a duck, and we think that this is probably based on a shell, or like a conch shell. We've got a china clog, and then we've got this yellow ornament, which looks a bit like a Henry Moore sculpture from the time. Henry Moore was one of the British artists who were included in that Surrealist exhibition in 1936. So Surrealism is also there in the Humphrey Spender photographs that Richard has selected for the exhibition. So Humphrey Spender came up to Bolton in 1937 and took lots of photographs of Bolton and Blackpool and created this documentary record of the two towns at that time. But there's definitely a kind of a surreal element threading through some of the photographs. So we've got a selection of photographs of Blackpool here. So there's this curious one of a young man looking into a promenade attraction window. We've got this one of a ride at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and you can see there's a swan here that looks a bit like the swan in Richard's ceramics.
Oh yeah.
And then over here we've got a painting of a man walking across a heavily shadowed square towards these curious towers, or this curious building at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. And Richard says that this reminds him of a Giorgio de Chirico painting. And we know that Humphrey Spender was interested in the work of Giorgio de Chirico, who often depicts kind of eerie looking spaces and places in Italian cities, and that seems to have influenced the composition of this photograph.
Here we have a mantelpiece full of messy objects, but I wonder, is that what Richard Slee intended?
Well, definitely with this piece. So this piece is called Clutter, and this is a great one for visitors to kind of look at and try and work out what's in there. So in the mantelpiece reports, there are lots of references to odds and ends, to bits and bobs, to kind of things that kind of just end up on mantelpieces. So in this piece, which is all one piece, you've got things like hair clips, buttons, tacks, there's a knitting needle there, there's cotton twine, there's a thimble, there's matchsticks, and this is on display next to an Art Deco lamp, which is based on a designer from the 1930s called Edmund Ettling, and then you've got a red alarm clock, which is based on a description in one of the reports which just says brilliant red alarm clock, and I think Richard was quite taken with that phrase and how you might turn it into a ceramic piece. And it's a classic, it's in a classic Richard Slee red. Richard loves kind of primary colours and he loves glossy glazes, so these two are kind of classic Richard Slee, I think. But he's also created lots of envelopes which are dotted around the 10 mantelpiece plinths. There are lots of descriptions in the reports of envelopes, opened envelopes, letters, so they all appear in these mantelpiece arrangements. And then this book at the end, there's a description in one of the reports of Gone with the Wind, the book Gone with the Wind left at the end of a mantelpiece.
This piece, Elephants and Candlesticks. It's really fun. I love it. Tell us a little more.
There are lots of descriptions in the 1937 mantelpiece reports of elephants and elephant ornaments. It seems like virtually everyone in the 1930s, if you had a mantelpiece, you had to have an elephant on your mantelpiece. There's descriptions of ebony elephants, ivory elephants. So Richard has created his own family of elephants. So you've got a daddy elephant, mummy elephant, and then junior elephant. And he's kind of created these as Art Deco elephants. Art Deco was this big design movement in the 20s and 30s, and a lot of people had Art Deco objects in their homes. And you can see he's created an arrangement with with candlesticks. So the elephants are kind of emerging from a forest or a jungle of candlesticks. So Richard's created each candle individually out of ceramics, and then he's found a whole load of antique candlesticks. Some he's created this lovely patina on the sort of the bluey ones, and then the other ones are just found candlesticks that he picked up in junk shops.
Thank you. Matthew, many thanks for showing us around this marvellous exhibition. How long does it run?
The exhibition runs until the 3rd of January next year. Do check online for details before visiting. And also, can I just say thank you to the Arts Council for supporting the exhibition with funding, and also to 2 organisations who helped us to develop the exhibition. The first was the Mass Observation Archive at the University of Sussex, who've lent us the amazing original Mantelpiece reports, and to the Museum of Home in London, who are also developing lots of displays about mantelpieces, and they're going to be doing a festival of mantelpieces with us in November, which will be online. So again, check out our website and Facebook pages for details about those.
Matthew, once again, thank you very much indeed.